son called me and he said, Mama, they don't believe me. He said, get a lawyer and have them look at the video cameras. He said, because they're mistreating me in here.
Specialist. They can't help me in here. And I'm in like so much pain. My blood pressure is 160 over 120.
That's why you fell last night?
I fell off the bed, yeah, trying to go take a pee. And they left me on the floor for 25 fucking minutes. The way I'm feeling, I'd rather whirl over and die. For real.
No, you'll be alright.
Yeah, that's serious. No, for real. This pain is ridiculous.
I know.
They finally did take him to the hospital. Several days after, he kept complaining. And when he went to the hospital, the doctors thought that he was faking, and they released him from the hospital and sent him back to jail, where he later died, September 2nd, 2018. What my son did have was treatable. He might have been in a wheelchair, but he'd have been alive. He would have been with us.
And guys, if you're just joining us, the video that you just saw, that was of my friend's son that he passed in prison, and his name is Hadel, and I don't want to butcher his last name, so I will just put it up for you guys to see. I just pray that you continue to pray for the mother, and just not just the mother only, but even the people that does that. For me, I feel like, do you even have a heart? Because, you know, whether someone is bad or whatever, to me, it's just humanity, you know. So just continue to pray. So welcome back. And now we are going to talk to my police chief, and that's my new security guard. So you guys, you better watch out. See, I got people, okay? So, Chief, what motivated you to join law enforcement? You've been in there like more than half of your life.
More than half my life. God called me to do it.
Oh, cool.
I mean, you know, there's no other. I was in college and I was majoring in something else other than criminal justice. And one day,
wow,
there I was, and I said, I'm changing majors. I want to study the law. I want to understand the law, and took a job as a police officer at the college I was attending, and the rest is history. Next 30 years.
Wow. So, which answer our next question. So you've been like, you don't even look like you passed 30. You sure? Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing.
I like that.
Guys, come on. Can you see him? Yeah, look like he's 30, does he?
Look, I got all that gray.
Yeah. No, he just colored it. Right there, I was putting on my makeup when he came messing in my makeup, put some gray all over his beard. Don't let him trick you. Anyway, how long have you been chief?
I've been chief of police here 4 years. I retired from my last assignment at the Henry County Police Department.
Oh, okay.
After serving there for a very long period of time, and took the job here after I retired. So, you know, it's been a learning. I worked at a much larger agency before coming here. Seen a lot of stuff in 30 years.
Wow. But Fayetteville, we seem to be a little safer, I think.
A little safer.
I don't hear much stuff over here.
No, very safe here in Fayetteville. We have a very low crime rate, which scares me sometimes, right? For my job security, if it ticks up a little bit. You know, when I was born and raised just up the street in Riverdale.
Oh, the place that I don't like. My husband can tell. I hear that word. I like, because I used to live up in Sandy Spring, and then and I know it wasn't fair, but everything I heard about Riverdale was bad, and so it just like it stuck with me that even when we drive in there, I'm like, we gotta go.
I'm from there, so it has to be good, right?
But now that I'm meeting you, I'm like, all this was a big lie.
That's right.
Wow, I'm glad that we cleared this out. Maybe I might take a chance on Riverdale now.
So yes, you know, I think being a chief's a challenge.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays with recruiting, retaining, reaching the public, and what we've seen in society, other police officers do that. Quite frankly, you know, like in the Derek Chauvin chase, you know, was not justified in doing.
Yeah.
Makes us all look bad.
And you know, and that's what and that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because not to, like I said, we're just there to defend the police or whatever. We want to just talk about it. And when one person does something that you don't say the whole, you know, everybody else is bad. It's true that they say like one apple corrupt, you know,
the entire patch, right?
But then that's why if you see that the apple is bad, let's get rid of that apple. Let's take that apple out and see if we can, you know, preserve the others. So, what do you see as your greatest challenge being chief in Fayetteville?
In Fayetteville, and I think across the world,
maybe yes,
has been everything. And when I say everything, recruiting good people at you know, a decent pay, but not the highest pay in the world. Social media, being able to reach out to the public, and getting them engaged in what we're doing. I found that it being difficult, and when we do classes or do things that we have a very minimal response, that it seems like we're trying to figure out what the community wants or what they'll respond to.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Social media being that when things occur and you have other people that interject opinions or think that they know the truth, it makes our job much harder when we're trying to investigate or do something as quickly as we can to get to the truth, the bottom of whatever is going on. And, you know, you're getting phone calls. Well, I heard this, I heard that, I heard the other. And you're trying to tell, because people, you know, I'm an open person. Everybody, you can have my phone number. You can call me. I'll answer the phone. We'll talk about it. I think that's the way you should be when you serve the citizens. You're the citizens chief, right? So when they're calling me, and it happened, you know, just last evening when I got a lot of phone calls about an incident, and it wasn't true. Yes,
I said unfair. I was just telling that to my husband. I was like, you know, I cannot. I told him the way I find out things is on that Facebook page.
Right. And we had to come back and say, you know, for about a couple of hours that no, there wasn't a mass shooting. No, there wasn't a shooting. No, there wasn't an active shooter. It was simply a guy who jumped up and said, I'm going to get a gun from my car, so everybody get out. And he went and got in his car and drove off. You know, and we found him.
I saw.
Right.
It's like there's a shooting, and then someone said they heard a bow, and I was like, what? Yeah. And then I saw the post. I was like, wait.
You see what you know, and that as a chief is difficult. I would, you know, just like calm down. We'll get it out. We are going to be. I cannot speak about any other agency. We will be transparent when something comes out. Here you go. Here it is. Or call me, and I'll be like, let me get you an answer. I don't know the answer. So,
and I think that sometimes too, just thinking about it, sometimes cause more havoc when everybody starts telling their own part of the story. Because even with an incident that just happened, and then I was repeating what I saw on, again, I need to get help for Facebook News. And then my husband's like, no, did you read the actual story? Did you actually read what happened? When I went back, I was like, oh, they didn't say that part. You know, and sometimes we can react because we only have, you know, half of the story.
Absolutely.
And I think that is, we have to be really careful, especially with everything that is, you know, going on. Wow. I know my brother was a police, but he did more the military part of it. So
Right.
okay, well, I mean, one of the questions we had is like, what is the crime rate like in Fayetteville?
Very
Which
low.
very
The worst crime that we have in the city of Fayetteville is shoplifting.
wow. Well, that's
Shoplifting
good.
is our number one crime, and that has
What
been
are they
ever since
shoplifting? I don't think we even have that many like expensive
at the
shops along
pavilion.
there.
You know, a lot of stuff around this area is at the pavilion, which is an outdoor mall here.
Mm,
And so you have your Walmart, your Home Depot, your Target, etc. there. And
wow.
so that's where the goods are. So if you're a thief, somebody who's going to shoplift things, where do you go? Where the stuff's at. And
Mm.
so they come down. And it's not a high crime theft rate, if you will. But still, that's our number one crime.
But I actually heard again here say that it was some of the crime that even happened here is really not people from Fayetteville, but people that's coming out from other cities. Again, I see that on Facebook.
Well, I think what they're referring to is, we have the hospital here in the
Okay.
city. It's actually in the city limits.
Mm.
So if somebody gets a gunshot wound in Clayton or Fulton or one of the other counties, they come to that hospital. They could be driven there by a family member, what have you, and we get the call of a gunshot wound coming in or a rape. And it didn't occur here, so we call those other jurisdictions. So a lot of times those things will get out, and people say, well, there was a gunshot, wound or a gunshot victim that came into the hospital, and it doesn't happen here. They just bring them to the hospital because the hospital's in the city.
Okay. Okay. Well, you did answer the question. What are the most prevalent crime? Okay. Is there a difference in the severity and the type of crime committed according to race? And again, I actually and I'm being honest, I had a problem with it because then I went on there, and that was like a few months back, and on the site, the Fayetteville police, and I was like, for me, most of the crime that I saw was like black people, and I'm like, is it only black people coming in crime in Fayetteville? What is?
Are you talking about on Facebook about the bolos, etc.?
Yeah, I think, was it a bolo? I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember I told my husband about it. I was like, it seemed like it's only black people that is either that they're reporting, or does anybody else? Because I think I saw there was only one with a lady, a Caucasian lady, either shoplifting or stealing something, but all the others were like black people. I'm like, whoa. And there's not that many black people in Fayetteville. So.
Well, I think we're about 40% at this point.
Really?
Yeah, about 40% at this point.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I would answer that as we only put the bolos out of people we can identify. If you saw it on social media, I don't know you know about the crime rates. I can't really answer the other question about does one race commit a crime more than the other one. I've known this over 30 years. I've worked in predominantly African American communities, and I've also worked in predominantly white communities. So crime is in that community, and normally it's people in or around those communities that are committing the crime, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So if I'm going to rob a bank, I don't rob a bank in Meriwether County or somewhere further south from here. I drive up where nobody's going to know me, and then I leave. So what we do is create those bolos based off the video that we receive.
Oh, okay.
And if you go back and look, I kind of look at the bolos a little bit, but, I get the crime reports and understand what's going on. Most of those are shoplifting, and I couldn't put a number on it, but predominantly of the people that we get shoplifting are African American out of the pavilion or on those bolos. But again, that's people calling us to say a crime's been committed.
Oh, okay.
Right. It's not us looking for that crime. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So if we're putting those bolos out, somebody's called us to report a crime.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Understand that. Okay, and so what is the level of conviction?
Level of conviction, I wouldn't be able, because like we were talking to Miss Perry earlier, we have a lot of programs in Georgia and sentencing, and specifically in Fayetteville. So I will talk about, recently in the past year, the mayor and city council, along with city manager and myself, drafted a new marijuana ordinance. We saw that, marijuana was getting our young folks into the system, as we talked about earlier. Miss Perry did at an earlier age. So, people make mistakes, realizing people make 1 or 2 time mistakes, not so severe. We were trying to keep them out of the system. So we created diversion programs. There are other diversion programs that are currently in place within the law in the state of Georgia, and in our criminal justice system, probation, first offender status, et cetera, to help try to give people those chances. I learned that from my wife, who at one point was an HR professional for a temporary agency, right? That would hire, and she used to be frustrated and ask me, I can't even hire people for a $12 an hour packer job or shipper job in a logistics warehouse because they've had one piece on their criminal record, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that kind of gave me the idea, looking at it, saying, well, okay, well, everybody deserves a second shot.
Good.
I don't know where the line's drawn, third or fourth. Of course, if you murder or, commit a heinous crime, then, you have to pay for those. But we're talking, low grade misdemeanors that sometimes people have to make decisions based on their livelihood. Somebody could shoplift food to feed their family because they don't have a job, they don't have the money to feed them. So we look at those things in the state of Georgia and specifically here in Fayetteville to make sure we're making the best decisions.
Okay, that's good.
So the conviction rate may be off a little bit based on that, because if you complete some of those programs, you're not convicted of it.
I think that's a good thing though, to because like you said, people make mistakes, and to find someone that say, I really made a mistake, and to know that the police department is helping you get, do better. I think I commend you guys for that. And even if you guys were full in Fayetteville, we're not taking more people. So just in case, wonderful city, we're full. Okay, I just wanted to throw this out there. Yeah, but we're moving on because I know we have a lot of questions. I know you have some stuff that you want to say as well. So we're just going to keep on going.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what is your take on the more recent incident involving, and we're jumping right into this, police or ex-police officers, example, the conviction of Derek Chauvin, and the killing, which that recent killing that happened in Ohio, which is very hot right now. So just talk to us on those a bit, please.
Well, in that former officer's case in Minneapolis, the video was clear from day one. In my humble opinion, not watching the news, but seeking all the videos as they came out, you could see that was killing Mr. Floyd. And that is not acceptable and turns into a crime. And I believe that the guilty verdicts seen in the case are just. I went back and looked today at the first verdict because I was looking at murder. And in murder, you have to have intent in Georgia, what they call a forethought. So, in other words, I think to myself, I'm going to kill you. I go get the gun and I come back and kill you, is how Georgia. So I had to read the first conviction because I was looking at it more along the lines like a Georgia's murder statute.
It was like unintentional.
It was unintentional.
I was like, what is that?
Yeah. So it meant that, and Georgia has similar statutes as that. We just call them manslaughter and involuntary manslaughter in the state of Georgia.
Okay.
So those convictions were just. They were spot on. I'm surprised it took the jury that long just to come up with those verdicts after watching the testimony and everything. I think it is spot on, because this will get into the next one in Ohio. I have not seen the entire video yet. What I have seen, and this is the caveat, what I have seen in applying the law, because I'm fixing to go over the law, it's justifiable. That the police officer was justified in using deadly force. And by that I mean that we are governed, every police officer in the United States, by a Supreme Court ruling, Graham v. Connor. And this is a case that was decided in 1989, shortly after Tennessee v. Gardner. So not long in our history of law here in the United States, Tennessee law said you could shoot a fleeing felon whether they were armed or not. If they had committed a felony, burglary is a felony, a property crime, you could shoot and kill them if they were fleeing from you. So the United States Supreme Court said under the Constitution that that was not justifiable. That was cruel and unusual punishment and a violation of due process. And Graham v. Connor, it gave us this. The totality of the circumstances, what the officer knows at the time or what's going on.
Okay.
What a reasonable police officer would do, the severity of the crime at issue, whether the suspect possesses an immediate threat to others or the officer, and whether they are actively resisting arrest or attempting to evade officers. So what Graham gave us is the objective reasonableness test. You put all that into play and say, was it objectively reasonable that other police officers would have done the same thing? So just from the snippet that I saw, officers arrives on scene. You've heard the 911 tape where they're saying that a young female is trying to stab other people. You get there, you see a knife and it going towards another person. Okay. Right? In a police officer's mind, they are trained to stop that threat. Right? At that point, I don't know what was going through the officer's head. I'm doing a lot of assuming. Right? I can tell you in the same scenario, if I saw that, I would have pulled my gun and I would have shot. That in that quick of a time span, not knowing, whether there's any, mental illness at play here at the time, or if it's something else. I've heard some people say, well, what about the taser? Those things, being one that's been in the business for 30 years, I've been involved in uses of force. I have been involved in situations like that. And what the court said is that second guessing an officer, and they used these words, in a tense, uncertain, and rapidly evolving situation is unfair to the officer at the time, what they perceive to be going on, right? What the perception is. We have a mind, and we can discuss a little further. I'm sure that brings up a lot of questions.
So a lot of people have that question though. Two things is why shoot to kill and why 4 bullets? You can. Is there a way, and it has happened a lot though, because we're like, okay, can they just shoot the person in the leg or in the hand or something that you disarm them versus, kill?
Do you want to grow your online presence and expand your business reach? Our marketing team can definitely help you. Advertise with us today and let Imagine Me TV take your business to the next level. We are offering 3 affordable packages to the end of 2020. Package number 1, you will receive 1 flash ad at the opening of the show. We will also share your business name, location, and phone numbers, and that is only $59.99. In package number 2, you will receive everything from package number 1, but you will also get a second flash ad in the middle of the show. Package number 3, you get to be the show sponsor, and you will receive everything in package number 2. Plus, we will list your website, and you will also have a 30-second video ad. these are some amazing prices. So what are you waiting for? Contact us today. Our email address info@leagueyourbrandltd.com, or you can call us at 614-402-7034. You can also visit our website at leagueyourbrandltd.com. You can catch our show on several broadcasting platforms like liveyourstreaming.com, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and also on Imagine Me TV network at League Your Brand Limited Company. We have viewers in all 50 states and globally. We are international, we are national, we are worldwide. Canada, Africa, Asia, Europe, the Caribbean islands, just to name a few. We are Imagine Me TV, your #1 virtual TV talk show.
Killing them.
It's very difficult when you are using a firearm, right? And people can go practice. It's very difficult. One, you remember, you get out, you're tense. It's not a natural act to have to do that. I can tell you from being in those positions, it's not a natural. I don't get up to go to work every day going, man, I sure hope I get to kill somebody. It's just not what happens. Yeah. And so when those situations occur, they're quick, instant, and all we are taught is to shoot the biggest part of the body, right? So put your hand up. So if I pull my gun out and you're trying to shoot that out, in a tense, quick second, you're trying to hit this, as opposed to something like this up here in this area. And some of the shootings that happen involving police, and you can see them, sometimes they come up. This because they're in a gun. I mean, they're all over the place, and people are moving, and the scene is chaotic, right? What I saw from that scene in Ohio is it was a split-second decision, and it was chaotic. Now, I haven't seen all the videos. Everybody understand them. None of us have seen everything, and there could be new evidence that comes out that changes that. I'm just saying what we have seen so far meets the law. Okay. And if you remember in the Chauvin case, if you watched the defense, when they put on their defense, they kept using the word reasonable officer, what they perceived, and that comes straight out of Graham v. Connor. Of course, the jury didn't buy it because guess what? There was no way. You have the suspect. You had him handcuffed. He died for not wanting to get into a car. And there are many techniques to put somebody in a car, right? And if you look closely at one of the videos, they had pulled the leg restraints out to help put him in the car and never used them, just sat on him. And it's criminal. It's just criminal. Sorry. I get passionate about that because that makes this badge look bad. And it makes us, like we talk about, heard Ms. Perry talking about black and brown people being looked at. You ought to wear this in the public. Yeah. I feel it. You can feel it when you go places, especially if you go places and you have African-American people there and they looking at you, and I try to be overly, hey, how are you doing? It's like, hey, I'm not the bad guy. And
that brings another question, though, because like for us, when we see them and with everything that's happening, we're like, oh. And now that he's saying that, he's telling us how he feels when you go to a place when there's, pretty much black people. It's tense for you guys as well.
You could just feel the people, people looking at you, and you want to reassure. I'm not here to. I'm here to eat something for lunch, right? Or I'm here to buy something at whatever store that I'm at. But I do understand. People and police officers around the world have to understand, especially in the United States, when you wear one of these and walk in somewhere, you're going to get several responses like, "Oh, I didn't do it," or "Oh, he'll get you because you're being bad." And I don't, I'm not. I'm just a regular old fella married with children and grandchildren, and I just want to do my job and do it to the best of my ability and go home. And I think that's 99% of the police officers in the United States, and that one little small out of and I wrote this down today, approximately 800 out of 333 approximately million Americans, there's only 800,000 sworn police officers in the U.S. And out of that, a small fraction violate the law and think they're above the law. And what I would like people to realize is that we're ordinary human beings trying to do an extraordinarily difficult job. And the majority of us want to try and do it right. And we feel bad. And if we can get into it and have time, or I may have to come back at some point talking about, the tremendous amount of pressure we feel in trying to get it right every single day. Even as a chief of police, every single day I come to work, I try and get it right. I try and make the best decisions for the public, for the city, for the employees. And I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't always get it right. I understand that, if I criminally do something wrong, I have to pay the price. And that's what I chose to do. And I enjoy law enforcement. I enjoy people. I enjoy being here. I enjoy being in the city. I enjoy the citizens. I enjoy the diversity that we share. I like hearing people from different backgrounds and understanding them, right? I just would like to, I know one of the questions was, how can we build a better relationship? I want everybody to understand us too and meet us halfway.
It's a two-way street.
Yes, ma'am. Meet us halfway. Those officers you see in the streets, I guarantee you have seen horrible things played out in humanity, and dead bodies in motor vehicles, people shot, people screaming for, us to help them. And that's not an easy thing to do when you see humanity. I've never had a 911 call or somebody call the police just for me to walk up and them shake my hand. I'm always going to solve a problem, right? Somebody's problem. I'm not complaining. That's the job we chose to do. But just understand it's a very difficult job, and every single day we are trying our best. I think for the majority. These videos that we see, Mr. Chauvin and some of these other ones that are horrendous, there are more videos out there like that, unfortunately. And they're not all African-American people. I've watched videos where white people have been done the same way. As we were talking earlier about Miss Perry, that's horrible video. It's just tremendously horrible. And I pray for her and my wife.
I guess some other, and even as you say, like things happening to white people as well. I guess when, we see that, there was a case where this 17-year-old was walking around with a gun, and coming to the police, and nothing happened to him. Right. Then I saw another video where this other Caucasian man is wrestling with the police, took the gun, took the truck, and left, and nothing happened. I think sometimes that's what get our people like, wow, what, it's unfair. And then, I'm not saying that that's a rule that the police put and say, hey, this is how you act. This people, this particular police that's making that decision. Mm-hmm. So what we want is that, okay, are there any, let's say, protocol, or is there something that's going to be changing that where maybe the way that they screen for officers are different? Maybe you can ask them, hey, do you like black people? I'm kidding.
Well, no. Now she
like
makes a valid point. So what they've come out with, so we do extensive backgrounds like we're talking about, right? Polygraph tests, lie detectors, knocking on doors, looking at stuff. But we also do another test to look for biases. But it's all kinds of biases, right?
Yeah.
Not whether the color of your skin, male, female.
Sexual orientations.
Do you have any propensity to be violent? Right? Just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, we look at those biases, and we look at, are those trainable? Are they can they be trained out of a person? We also look at the bias-based profiling. We're a state certified agency, and all the ones in Fayette County are right now. And you have to keep track of that, right?
Okay.
So we know what race, sex, while they're pulling them over, you know, every single month for every single officer, so we can look at if things get out of the ordinary. Since I've been chief, one did, and I let them go and terminated them based on what I was seeing, that I thought that the bias existed and they cannot work for me. They cannot work for the citizens. They can't even work in law enforcement, because I don't want that to happen. And once you see it, you have to act, right? So there's a lot of, I'm trying to answer the question the best way, but there's a lot of things in place in the state of Georgia with a lot of agencies where we are watching and constantly looking at the data coming in to make sure our officers are doing. But having all that, the policy, we have the no chokehold policy, unless it's a life or death situation. I did not want to take that out of the officer's hand, and I mean this in this way. I'm going to explain it. If I'm fighting with a guy I'm trying to arrest, and he's much bigger and stronger than me, and he gets on top of me, and he is choking the life out of me, and I reach over and all I can grab is a rock, I'm going to hit him with the rock. We're not trained to hit people with rocks, but that kind of gives you an understanding. It's like, if that's the last resort you have, you can do it, but at no other time. If they're it clearly says if they're handcuffed, et cetera, and also what I would like to see is, and most agencies that I know of have adopted this many moons ago, you have a duty to intervene. So if I'm another officer and I see you doing what Derek Chauvin did, I have a duty to intervene under law and under policy to make sure that nobody's civil rights are being violated. And if you don't intervene, you're just as criminal, liable.
Wow.
I think some of those things, but the other thing I would tell you is, don't expect us to be the jack of all trades.
Yeah.
Because people see us as, and I think Ms. Perry touched on a little bit, you know, mental health experts. We do get mental health training, right? But it's not years of training. We do get de-escalation training every single year, right? We do get conflict resolution training. We do all those things every single year. But I think some of the misconception on de-escalation is it's all about talking. If I pull up to something, you have a gun out, and you're threatening to shoot somebody, and I pull my gun out and say, don't shoot anybody, put the gun down, and you don't, and you turn to shoot at me and I shoot you, I've de-escalated the situation. It took that, or sometimes I might be able to go, ma'am, I just need you to put the gun, just put it down. We can talk about it. We can do anything. And if you do that, I've de-escalated the situation. Sometimes one works, sometimes they don't. You know, it's a fine line that we're looking at, you know, and it's a hard line to look at. I'll be honest with everybody. It's a very difficult line, but we also, and all state certified agencies, have to have a thorough review of every use of force that their officers do. Our use of force policy is that supervisors begin the use of force packet, is what we call it. They put it all together with all the videos, all the documentation, everything, and it's looked at by our training department. It is looked at by our internal affairs department that investigates police misconduct, and then it's reviewed by all of what we call our command staff, the people who make the decisions, including me, right, to determine if it's within policy and within the law. And if it's not, then we have to deal with it. And we will deal with it. We're transparent about it. And when people ask us, there's nothing to hide. Here it is. We made a mistake, if that's what we did. Or here it is. It's within the law. And, you know, we will work to get better at trying not to use force.
So even when they go through like the main training, So you guys do like ongoing training, like even through different times.
Yes, ma'am.
Just
we have to have
refreshers.
We have to have a mandated training in the state of Georgia of at least 20 hours every year, and they have what they call the Governor's Initiative. So it's community policing, oriented policing. It is de-escalation training. It is use of force training, right? And then we have to, qualify with our firearms, our guns to make sure we're still proficient. So those are a must, right? And then you have other criteria you must meet. In Fayetteville, we make them go way above that, closer to 80 to 100 hours a year of training in other different areas, such as leadership. We just finished training on how to de-escalate through words, right? Mm-hmm. And how to start off conversations in all segments of society. Because it was and if you ever stop, they should say, Chief Gray with the City of Fayetteville Police Department. Ma'am, the reason I stopped you today is for speeding.
You did stop me. I'm just telling to call my friend over there. Hey, Chief Gray.
She knows me, right?
Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
So that is kind of hopefully brings the level down. Okay, they've told me their name, right? They've done it in a calm manner. They told me why they stopped me. At that point, don't argue with them. Yeah. Right? Because then you come back up and we're trying to bring it back down. We want to have a peaceful encounter. Here it is, whether you get a ticket or not. Yeah. Right? Call me.
I'm coming. Well, you didn't give me your number, though. I hope you didn't give me a fake number. I'll be calling like this ain't real.
So, so if that makes sense to everybody, as we try to, because everybody's nervous. We're nervous. You're nervous, right? We don't know who we're stopping. We can run a tag, but it may not be who it is. And I want you to put yourself in our position, that we're just asking you, if we're doing the halfway, we're asking everybody else to meet us halfway. And if I walk up there and you disagree, it makes no, I am sure everybody I wrote a speeding ticket to ever disagreed that they were speeding, or didn't like it. I understand it. And people say, well, you don't know what it feels like. I've had a speeding ticket before in my early days before I became a police officer, right? I'm not immune. Yes, I did speed once or twice, right? And I understand that, and we understand the approach. And sometimes we have to come in with voice inflection, like the Ohio incident, where all hell's breaking loose. And people are pushing everybody, and and you have a knife present, and everybody's screaming. You need to raise your voice. You're trying to get those people's attention to get it down, right? So not everybody will agree with that. I understand. I'm always open up for better suggestions. But if you would have had what some people term a civilian psychologist or CIT person that could intervene if there was a mental health issue going on, that other conversation that we go by that did not violate the law. As far as what I've seen, Derek, some of the other videos I've seen, yes, violated the law. I want to work on specifically the mistrust in not only Black and brown communities, but poor communities, right? Because, in poor Hispanic communities, poor white communities, the distrust is there as well, right? It's no different. Some people will say, and I understand why they say it, that, well, they're not dying. They do. The numbers show that, people are dying. Mine is not looking at the race. It's how do we reduce the use of force on people. Not just a specific, but people, because white people, Hispanic people, African American people, Asian American, they all, are have force used it. Bigger question that I won't answer. I understand in specific communities, and we here will work hard every single day to make sure we are connecting. You have a chief that listens, that is transparent. One of the ladies that was involved in some of our protests last year up on the square, right, in downtown, called me, and she was beside herself because there were some things going on in her family. She's African-American female. And I said, well, you set up a time and I'll meet you over there. And I'll talk to that young man. And I follow up with her from time to time to see how it's going. But it wasn't because of anything else. It was a mother reaching out about her son. And she felt that I could reach them.
I think that's a good point that you're making, though. If even for not just African Americans, but when someone has a situation with their child where they can feel comfortable enough to say, let me talk to a police officer, because we know that that kid, or that, it can be an adult, may have respect for the police, or they might be afraid, or whichever way.
Right.
If we can come to them, but in the same instance, the law enforcement saying, okay, you know what, you come to me, so we're going to work together. And I think that might be something that can be implemented where even before something bad happens, the community can know, you know what, if you are struggling, if there's a problem, don't wait till it's escalated or get really bad. Come to us. Let's see how we can solve it. And I'm not just talking, not just the Black community, but anybody. Anybody that, because, sometimes, a lot of times things may start really small and then it can just,
Absolutely.
It can just explode. And the thing is not about this show. That's why, we do this to bring information to people, to see how we can work together, to see how not to keep, beating and stuff and over again, and there's no change, but how can we honestly move forward and just work together as a community or as a country, and just because we are all people, and we are all God's people. And yes, like I'm sure in every community, in every race, you have people that are out there. You have people that have their own ideas.
Yes,
and I'm thinking, even that as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, even in the police force, you may have some people that come in there with certain ideas or ulterior motives, and the police chief or whoever might not even know what this person is up to.
Right.
And then while I was thinking that, this thing came into my head, that Dr. Chanel Miles, he said, if you see something, say something. So maybe that's another thing the police officers can do, because maybe if they're wrong, their buddies, and you hear them say something, you see them act different, to be able to report them, and they don't have to say who do it, because someone might let something slip, and it may mean a lot more, from another officer. You say, you know what, I heard this person say this did not sound, right. Just ways that we can just work together.
Absolutely.
Because in the African American community, it just seemed, I know a lot of it just seemed like it's happening to us so much, and it's hurting. And maybe we may not have all their answers or all everything lined up, but it's just now, especially now with all that's happening, we want to find a way where it can be de-escalated.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was just really tough that while the George Floyd case was going on, then one young guy in his 20s got shot by an officer, and then another young girl,
Lake Park,
Minnesota. Was it Minnesota?
Where she mistook her gun?
The
taser for the gun. Right.
So then, so it's pretty much the law enforcement, the community understanding us, and we understanding the community as well, where it's not just a one-sided thing. And maybe, like you said, you want to get all the facts before we react.
Right, but let me ask you this: how many people does it take to de-escalate a situation?
How many?
2.
Okay.
If me and you were in a situation, it takes me trying to de-escalate and you trying to de-escalate as well. You see what I mean? So, we have to see that. I absolutely agree with what you're saying, and the things that we're looking at. Absolutely on the criminal justice mind, law enforcement mind. We have to be able to communicate with everyone to the best of our abilities. I agree with you, and that's why it's in policy. I will discipline you if you see some of this going on and don't say anything.
Yeah.
You get to go too. You know what I mean? So they're very aware of that. They understand that, and we've not had that problem. And we have an internal peer review board. So I decided to make that up when I first got here, because you know what? If your peers, the people that you're working with every day, say that you did wrong, it means more than just me, because he's just a chief.
Yeah.
But right, if your peers, the people that you work with every day, say no, that was the wrong thing to do, you know where the line's drawn. It's up to me to make sure where that line's at, right? To raise that bar. This is what I will not accept. So yeah, I think it's great that you come to shows like this, and you have honest, real, open discussions, and you go into the community and do it. And if you go into the community, they'll tell you. I have, of course, you know that I have honest, frank, open discussion.
And
let's
that's
get it
what
out
we
there.
need. Let's just talk. Talk about it. And even and it was just going my mind. I don't know if you may be able to answer that. Why do you think though that the Black community is so fearful of law enforcement?
I think it's several different reasons, but in knowing the history, so I hadn't been in law enforcement very long, right? When Mr. Rodney King incident happened in Los Angeles. So that kind of started shaping how I saw law enforcement in the world in different communities. But along in the mid-90s, shortly after Mr. King incident, and later into the 90s, what epidemic was happening in the United States? It was the crack cocaine epidemic. And it was predominantly where? And lower income communities, and people were going to so by policy in those areas that we're just now seeing, and when former President Obama was pardoning a lot of people and overturned those mandatory sentencing, which I agreed with, that again, in those instances where we used a hardline technique to try and solve that problem, it backfired. It was a bad policy. We put all these people in prison for a small amount of crack cocaine, trying to get people comply, and it didn't work. And it created a lot of distrust because, I truly believe that police were trying to rid all those communities, any community where crack cocaine was at, of it. We just run down it the wrong way, right? So then it starts that snowball effect, right? And then nowadays you have social media, and you have video cameras now, and people, here's the transparency. Here it is. There's nothing. This is what happened, right? And it seems to me, because I look at the numbers and I look at everything else, that some places like to sensationalize certain demographics, right? Because we also have African American police officers and that are amongst the ranks out of 800,000 people. They use force. They use deadly force, right? And we're not looking at the mental health of us, right? Last year, more officers died by their own gun than they did from somebody else's gun. I want the viewers to hear that again.
Yeah.
They died from their own gun instead of a perpetrator's gun or a perpetrator's car.
Yeah.
They see so much. So I'm also a huge advocate for officer wellness, not just their physical well-being,
Mental.
but here,
Yes. Yeah.
right? Can you imagine seeing murder, rape, robbery, the worst in people over 30 years? It takes a toll on you.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just a horrible thing. So I think it's a two-prong. Like, we've got to get all
Balance.
those to go and to get everything I talked about earlier, training, this, that, and other. But we also got to get this and make sure that they're okay.
Yeah.
I've had 3 personal friends myself over the last 10 years take their own life that were police officers that have been in it for a while. And, you know, when you start really seeing that and seeing the numbers, out of 800,000 people, may not sound like a lot, right?
Yeah.
You know, 150, 175, 200 officers taking their own lives. How many of the other ones are in alcohol abuse or something else? We have to look at that as well. I think that, you know, it's a two-pronged test. You know, there's only so much a human person can take. So,
And I think would you say, so what, one of the things that should happen is that when something happens, whether there's a shooting and it involves anybody, that we should look at maybe the individual who's committed that crime, or whether we call it a crime or not, versus, I mean, the officer versus the whole police department. Because, you know, that one person that police officer, he may be going for something. It may be, we just don't know what it is. So,
no.
you know,
Right.
to just, I honestly don't like it when they just put the whole, all the police officers or law enforcement into the whole stuff. Like, you know,
right.
It's every one of them. That
Right.
to me is really unfair. And I like what you said, that many times we look at all the stuff that the police officer doing, the negative stuff, but you're right. We don't know what other mental issues, and we're not saying that they're mentally ill, but like you said, to see someone get shot, someone had told me that I was supposed to be a nurse, and I did start nursing school, and I'll see blood, I'll be like, you know what, this is not for me. If someone died, I'll be so, you know, it was hard for me, you know. So you're right that we just really don't even know some of the other stuff that they go through. And my son is in the Air Force, and I've had some of his friends just even this week. One of the officers, the airman, said to me, and I've had to talk to some of them out of suicide. And she was saying that, because I was saying like, maybe you need to get some counseling and stuff like that. And she's like, all of us do. All of us need it. I was like, what? She's like, you guys don't know what we're going through. And I was like, wow. And she's like, it shook me, because, you know, we see them out there, they're in the uniform and they're fighting and they're doing all of this, and we're just like, they're super people. But no, they're struggling too, because they have
Absolutely.
us to protect. They have, you know, their own life, you know. So my prayer is that we will find a way, you know, to bring balance. And
that's
right.
That's a good word.
You know, everybody. That's one of my husband's favorite words.
I like that.
I stole his word. So, and let me see what the last thing that we have there. How can we, as morally responsible citizens, help in building a better relationship between police officers and the general community? Because that is what we honestly want, and that's what we all should honestly go towards, not just pointing fingers. And I think, you know,
I agree.
Can you
I would say the same thing we've discussed here: understanding, meeting halfway, understanding each other. I'll be the first one to tell you that, you know, we have to do it as well, and I think we do a good job of trying to understand here at the city of Fayetteville, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what I demand. It starts at the top. But the community has to also, you know, meet us that other halfway and say, okay, we hear what you're saying, but this is how we feel, and we have to be, and then you just have to build from there, educate each other, right? Here's the law. This is what I can and can't do, and this is how I like to be approached, you know, and it just, I think, snowballs from there eventually, and we come to some common ground to where, okay, for the majority, this is what we're going to do. There are just some people, like you said, that no matter what we do, this is just going to end up this way in some kind of not so good fashion. You know, here in the metro Atlanta, over the last couple of weeks, how many police officers have been shot? Right? You had the Carrollton shootout, you know, with those officers and the AK-47 with the big, and they were shot. A police officer and his dog were shot. A police officer just up the street from here was killed driving his motor vehicle in Clayton County to a part-time job. You know, it's just one of those, you know, when we see that and we're like, and then on the next day you have the verdict, and again, it's police are bad. And, you know, we just have to come to some commonality and say, we understand not all police are bad. We would like to see this change and make sure you don't do any of this. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, has to be reasonable, has to be within the law, and we're good. And the other thing is not teaching our people to be scared of us, you know, to understand it's a difficult job, and to, hey, look, now's not the time to argue and fight. We're just a vessel, and I like to call us the vessel that gets you in the criminal. We arrest you based on what they call probable cause, right? Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean you're guilty at all. We had this conversation. I gave you my own story early in my life and said, you know, it just gets you here. A jury of your peers, that means the people find out whether you're guilty or not. And one of the last things I would tell you is that, so for less than a year, 11 months, because it was Memorial Day, right? Remember? It was in May when Mr. Floyd, his video, he died and the video surfaced. Mm-hmm. We're not even in May yet, a year later, in 11 months, right? We have gone from seeing that video to charging, prosecuting, and a trial, and his peers, not police, not a judge, not anybody else. A group of citizens said, that's unacceptable. That is unacceptable, and we will not tolerate that. I think the justice system worked, right? For so much stuff that it gets beat up for, and it's not perfect. It worked. There it is. And some people say, well, only once. No, I've known a lot, you know, some police officers that have gone to prison for committing crimes. They're just never publicized as much as what we see. We are held accountable. We are held to a very high standard. I know it would be hard for some people to believe, but we are.
And it may take time. And I think, just like you said, that the people, the public, they stand up for George Floyd, and, you know, look, here we are. Justice was served. And with so many things that have happened, like so many times now, we know it might take a little time, but we have to continue looking at the bigger picture, say this is where we want to get to, you know. So some things may happen along the way, but let's not look back. Let's not fall back, but let's keep going forward.
Sure.
And if you see then there's no change, and you see, no, nothing's happening, then that's a different thing. But if you see where, okay, you know, the law enforcement department, the community, everybody's trying to work together, then we know, okay, you know, we'll get somewhere. But we all have to work together.
That's right.
And for me, when I look, I know racism is real, but I don't think it's just something that is in the police force. I think it's bigger than law enforcement. So when we make it about that, you know, something that can be, you know, not a problem. So before we jump and say it's because of the race or because of what, let's decide, you know what, let's work together. You know, ask questions. Don't be afraid to talk. And like you said, we want to be able to be, if I see a police officer, that I can approach them. I can make, like even today, there were like 4 of their, and not even just the police officer, like even the firemen, they were going to dinner. They're like, am I invited? They're like, yeah, come along. I feel like I could joke around with them, you know. And that's what we want to be able, that when we'll be able to approach you and just say, hey, we're not like afraid that we see you, that we're gonna, you know, hide, like, you know, when you guys park in the corner of the road and we're driving by, we're like, oops. I was like,
But
oh.
it's like this. It's race, bigotry, sexism.
Yeah,
All
so-
that is in the world.
Yeah.
But we're trying to take hate out of people.
Yeah.
And some of the things that I tell people is you're not going to get the hate out of everybody because hate is not only taught, but sometimes, it's a natural part of the brain. Like, I just tell you this. I hate broccoli. I don't want to eat broccoli ever, right? See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I despise broccoli. But
And even if it's good for you, just be like, oh, I hate it. I'm not going to eat it.
We as a people, as a country, have to stand up and say, well, you can take your hate and go somewhere else, right? That's the way that I kind of approach and see things, and I understand that racism will always exist, bigotry will always exist, sexism will always exist. It's how we, and you hit on it earlier about officers saying if something is said or done or what have you. I agree wholeheartedly. And that's with anything. That's with racism, bigotry, sexism.
Yeah.
Oh, she can't do that job because she's a female, right?
Yeah.
And that's just not. We preach and we talk about Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act all the time, which protects everybody. Everybody. You, me, everybody out there that's in the United States. It protects everybody.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about that constantly. We train. We talk about, disability. Other. I can't say it enough.
Well, I pray that all officers everywhere, different places, sees this, and they can take on the same, spirit like you have, where you want better for your community. You're approachable, you're reachable, you're relatable, and that's what we want. And because when it comes down to it, you guys you have a really great job to protect the public. So even when we're laying in our house, because when something happened, that's who I call. Like when I locked myself out of the house and then I had a pot on the fire and I was like, oh my goodness. But I was still, I was like, Lord Jesus, please don't let them come with all the sirens and stuff, because the neighbors are going to be like, what did she do? And it was good. The firemen came, I don't know. They didn't show me how to unlock the door, so I don't want to get nobody in trouble. They went in there, but it was so comforting to know that I called and, they were there, because otherwise I'd be like, so we know that that's what you guys do. You protect and serve, and we want to keep it that way, and again, just, I pray for the officer, not because my son is in the Air Force and stuff, because we know that just your lives are in danger too, so we're gonna get that balance, and we're gonna work together, and we're gonna get it together.
Starts with good people.
We're gonna and
starts with good people. Starts with good people.
And even if it's just two of us that started, two people can start a movement, and you'll have naysayers and stuff, but it's possible. I truly believe it's possible that the change that we want to see, it begins with us. Not be yelling like, I want to see the change, and you do something else. No. If we're talking about we want to see change, let us be the one to start the change in other people. Oh, come on. So, right. Any last words you want to say to our viewers?
Everybody stay safe out there. Remember that, there's a higher being than us. And through him, we can accomplish anything. As long as you keep the faith, and we keep talking, and we keep moving in the right direction, and we keep making sure that we're transparent, and we have plenty of dialogue with everybody, and meet everybody halfway.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being there. I know we're going to have you again. It was really good conversation, because I think that we need to keep that conversation going, to keep it out there, that people can hear, hey, we're working together.
Absolutely.
We're working together, and that's what we want to get. So once again, we want to say thank you. Thank you for taking the time off on a Sunday evening to watch the show, and we just pray that you have a really great week. God bless you, and thank you for watching Imagine Me TV.